Well, another episode of Coastin, along with Evan Pivnik. This is David Fine, and we're pleased to be joined by former ECHL and AHL netminder Parker Milner, who have just had a star-studded career with the South Carolina Stingrays, now lives in the Charleston area, has grown to really love it, one of the best cities in North America, as we could attest to based on some of the guests on the podcast. But Parker, it's great to have you on today. Hope you're doing well, and what's going on with you?
Yeah, thanks a lot for having me, guys. I am enjoying retirement. It's crazy to think I've only skated about 5 times in the last year since my last game, but I'm like you said, living in Charleston full time. I am the cuisine editor for the Charleston City paper, which is our alt weekly newspaper that goes out every Wednesday, and so yeah, everything's good. Kind of writing about food and enjoying living in a pretty cool city.
That's probably one of the best jobs you could have outside once you're done with hockey. But I want to get to one thing you talked about. You only skated 5 times since you've hung up your skates, in your career. And I know a lot of goalies, once they're done playing goalie, they're done playing goalie after their career. Are you in the same boat there? Are you like, all right, I'm going to try to score some goals, but I'm skating around with my buddies now?
Yeah, I think I'm still in the in-between. I'm still kind of figuring out what type of men's league player I'm going to be. It's the only times I've been out have actually been to sub in with the Stingrays when they needed a guy. And it is fun. I still like being in the goal, but I might have to have one of my buddies send some players gear out and see if I can crack it as a forward.
Parker, one of the things, and we were talking to Jared Shaffrin, who's a friend, both Evan and I, and obviously the voice of the Stingrays. And he had talked about, man, that like you love Charleston, you love the city, you love the people. For somebody that's never been, I mean, Evan and I have been, but for somebody that's never been, give us a rundown of why that town is just a special place, not only to play hockey, but just to live.
Yeah, I mean, for starters, the weather's amazing. That's kind of, it never really dips below 40 or 50 here, which is pretty awesome. I'm not a huge golfer, but there's some great golf courses. Obviously, Kiowa Island is nearby, where they're having the PGA Championship in like 2 weeks, which is pretty cool. For me, I really, first of all, enjoy the food. Obviously, that was one of the first things that I noticed when I even heard about this place before I came, just how many cool restaurants and breweries and all that there are here. But then it's also just the people here are so nice. It's just a really different vibe than what I was accustomed to in Boston, where I went to college, and New York, where my parents live. It's just such a welcoming place, and it's just really been a pleasure to live here.
I visited Charleston probably at the time of this podcast a week and a half ago. I was literally just in Charleston on vacation with my girlfriend, and I got to go. It was in the 2019-20 season. We went for like a day with the Thunder because we were playing like a 3 and 4 down south. We did one of our south trips, and I just remember like I wish we had more time here. So we ended up going for 4 days, Sunday to Thursday, and it was awesome. It like blew away everyone's expectations. I knew it was nice, but then you say you're a cuisine editor for the paper, and one of the biggest things there is just the food, the amount of restaurants you can go to, and how good it all is. What are some of your top spots in Charleston?
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to hear some of the places that you hit, but my fiance and I are big time regulars at this place called 167 Raw, which is right on King Street, which most people know for like the bar scene. That's where all the bars are. But this place is located down more by where the shopping is. And it used to be in an old location that was literally like 12 seats, and the wait was 2 hours. And then they moved to a place now that's like 40 feet seats, and the wait's still 2 hours, but it's definitely worth it. So that is one that we go to a lot. There's a place called Jackrabbit Philly that's in North Charleston, about 15 minutes outside of like the main heart of downtown, that does Asian fusion. and it's just, that's probably my favorite place in the whole city. And then for barbecue lovers, there's kind of the trifecta of amazing barbecue places. Home Team Barbecue, which is kind of like more your casual bar vibe, but with really amazing barbecue. Then there's Lewis Barbecue, which is like heavy Texas beef brisket. And then Rodney Scott's, if anyone's ever watched Netflix Chef's Table, he was featured on the barbecue episode, and he does like the whole hog barbecue. So I'd always recommend barbecue for people coming to Charleston.
Piv, where were you at last week?
I hit up Home Team Barbecue. I did that.
That's
I
a
did
good
that
start.
one. It was awesome. Like and again, it's just like you walk into like a bar. It's like a lot of people say it's very good barbecue, and you just walk in, and you said it's like a bar setting. You're not really expecting the whole barbecue thing. And then I ordered like a brisket sandwich. I was like, this is unbelievable, exceeded my expectations. And the buffalo chicken dip is also very good there too.
Yeah.
And we also went to a place, Ruru's for Mexican.
Yeah, right on East Bay Street. Yeah.
Yep. And I appreciated how their menu is all movie quotes. All their items are all movie quotes, which I actually, did some research, because I was like, oh, this is kind of like Moe's, what Moe's does in terms of like their menu items. And apparently like the owner of Ruru's founded Moe's at one point, or used to work with Moe's. So there's some sort of correlation
I didn't
there.
know that.
Yeah, I looked it up and I was like, oh, that's interesting, because that was the first thing I thought of. And their food was very good. The service there was very good as well. We went to the Blind Tiger as well.
Oh yeah, that's a classic. I like that spot, and the outdoor space is amazing too.
Yeah, they didn't want to seat us outside. They were like, oh, there's too many people outside. You just sit inside. It's like, all right, whatever. So the food was good. It was a cool vibe. It was like one of those, I think a lot of the Blind Tiger is more of like, okay, this is one of the oldest bars that is in Charleston. Just look around and like everything's kind of original.
Yeah. And that's kind of that's a cool part about downtown. It's funny whenever my sister and my family visit from New York, they're not used to, we'll drive around and there'll be like a dilapidated building just out of nowhere, and they're not used to that. They're like, are we in a nice area? And it's because they preserve the buildings, and they're like very big into that, and it makes for a really cool scenery downtown for sure.
Norfolk has a little bit of the same vibe in some of the areas, like the Freemason district of Norfolk, which was, I guess, about a mile from the arena and a mile from the hotel, with some of that kind of feel too, preserving the buildings. How did you get started in becoming a food critic?
Yeah, I get asked that a lot, and I guess looking way back, I probably owe a lot of it to my dad. When I grew up in Pittsburgh, and we were doing the travel hockey thing. So every weekend it'd be like Cleveland, Detroit, Chicago, do it all over again. And that was the circuit. And he would always find these weird places, that seemed really just different to me at the time, whether it was Indian food or Afghani or Thai, and he would make me go to them. And obviously as a 10, 11-year-old kid, I fought him at first, and then probably a year or two later, I always looked forward to that, and that was something that we did together. And so I think kind of from that point on, I've always been into food and trying different food. Obviously, when you go to college, you kind of that kind of goes out the window. You're just kind of being a college student and trying to manage everything. But I think once I got to pro, I was able to find that passion again, and just started writing kind of for fun for a while. And then when I played in Kansas City, I think I started doing that a little more because that was a really good food city. My first 2 years, I played in Stockton and Quad Cities, so they weren't really necessarily the food meccas of the world. But once I got to Kansas City, I kind of got to really, really explore and do that. And then when I got to Charleston, I eventually applied for a freelance writing job with this online publication called Eater. They have maps for I think 30 cities throughout the country, and they just do like guides. And so I was doing like 10 best places in Charleston to go eat chicken wings and that sort of thing. And then I started doing freelance work for other publications. I interned at Charleston Magazine and just kind of slowly started building it up from there. And then in February, before the pandemic, the job that I have now as cuisine editor opened up, and I was kind of nearing the end of the rope with with pro hockey, and I had known that it would be my last year. And so I accepted the job, and I was going to do it part-time for the rest of the year and then start full-time after. And then 3 weeks later, that just was fast forwarded and I just kind of started right then and there.
So just out of, a lot of people like to have hobbies and stuff when they're playing professional hockey, but your hobby is so unique. And so, I mean, a lot of times the hobbies that people have when they're playing pro hockey, a lot of the times, guys play video games, guys golf, and guys do all this other stuff. But you're like, well, I'm planning for my future in a way. Like, I know I have this skill and I love to write and I love food, and you kind of just put it all together and you planned your future before your hockey career even ended.
Yeah, I think anyone who played with me would say that I'm definitely like a pretty big busybody. I do not sit well, and I just always, even when we're on the road, I just always wanted to kind of go check places out and do things. And I was never really into like cards on the bus, and I just kind of used that time to do a lot of writing, and that was just kind of my thing. And it once I started writing more and doing it more, I found that it made me enjoy hockey so much more, because like you said, I felt like I was being productive with my time, but also something that I truly enjoyed.
It was interesting. And I was in the car yesterday and chatting with Jared Schaffrin, like we said earlier. And so with Jared, he said that he looked at and sort of summarized your career and kind of what you just said in this way, which is that he said maybe you started playing better when you really embraced, the fact that you're in the ECHL and you're succeeding in the ECHL, whereas early on in the career, maybe it was like, I want to be in the AHL, want to obviously move up the ranks. But at what point in your career did you really embrace the fact that you were going to be playing in Hershey and in South Carolina, and those were going to kind of be your hubs, and you could make the most out of your life by being successful in those areas and in those cities specifically?
Yeah, I think it was my first year kind of difficult, because playing at a place like Boston College, and we won 2 national championships, and you see all your friends either playing in the AHL or the NHL, and you kind of know that you're capable of that. I think the first year I was just honestly maybe a little embarrassed, and I just thought I was too good for it, and as a result I didn't play that well. And going into my second year, I didn't have a lot of options, and I was kind of forced to embrace where I was at. And it was a really hard year, because just for a lot of reasons, but playing in Quad City was just difficult for a person like me who likes to explore and do things. And the travel was really bad. It was right when they moved from the CHL, so we were like in a 6-team division playing the same 5 teams every single night. And I think after that year, the fact that I was able to embrace it, from that point moving forward, I took pride in the fact that I played in the ECHL, a lot of it because I realized that it was a really good league and has only gotten better since. And it just, it took me playing in it to see how hard it is. And now when I watch college hockey, I mean, those guys are amazing, but you watch what the goalies have to do. And, I did way less when I played in college, because I had really good players in front of me. And so, and then I think I just realized that I really enjoyed the dynamic of the locker room in the ECHL. It felt more like college to me. And when I would go up to the AHL, it's just different. And I'm sure that's how it is in the NHL. And that is how it was, the little time that I spent in training camp. And it's not a bad different. It's just, it's different. It's more of a job. And the ECHL, the locker room, it felt like a real team, because everyone, is kind of there because they love it.
Definitely. And one of the things we want to touch on here, you mentioned it before, just your time at Boston College, man, and 2 national championships in 4 years. And you played 14 games as a freshman, and not a lot of goalies come in and play that many games at all their freshman year of college. What were the talks going into your freshman year once you committed to Boston College from Waterloo in the USHL? And what were the discussions? Did you know that you were going to play this many games? And did you know the caliber of the team that you're coming into?
Not really, because to be honest, I committed to Boston College. I guess it would have been, I think it was like May 29th or something, before I went in September, because the goalie there that was there, John Muse, who's had a good pro career, he had hip surgery, and they were kind of starting to get concerned that he wasn't going to be able to play. And so once they approached me, I kind of, thought maybe I would get to play some games. That's what they said, but I wasn't really going in with a whole lot of expectations. And so, yeah, and my sisters always give me crap because I filled out my college application in probably 45 minutes, and they spent like months doing theirs. But yeah, I think once I got there, and we just had an amazing class. We had 10 and then 9 guys that stayed for at least a couple years, with like Brian Dumoulin, Chris Kreider, Phil Samuelson, and just having that big of a group, it was just so much fun to be around. And yeah, I think just getting the opportunity to play behind the team that we had, and having them play so well in front of me those first couple games really allowed me to settle in. Ended up obviously being a pretty amazing year.
So what was your game plan if Boston College didn't come to you in May of that year? Were you going to spend another year in the USHL and kind of just, play it year by year?
Yeah, the year I played in Waterloo was my senior year of high school. So I still felt, pretty good about, if I had to do one extra year. So that was my plan. And yeah, it was, I think Jerry York came and watched me play our last playoff game that we got eliminated, and he saw me play for like 2 periods because I went in for the other goalie. But the assistants had seen me, Mike Kavanaugh and Greg Brown. So yeah, like I said, it all happened really quickly, but the plan was to go back to Waterloo.
The Boston College National Championship team with Chris Kreider, Pat Richards, who did a lot of the Reading Royals broadcast with me, has gone to the Frozen Four like each of the last 25 or 30 years. And he still says that team might be the best team that he's ever seen like perform in a Frozen Four, and just the amount of talent. What kind of pride and respect and in retrospect, what do you think about not only that was one of the better teams to ever come through NCAA, but what do you think of it now, about a decade out or so? Like, I was a part of that team that's considered maybe one of the greatest of all time.
Yeah, well, I still got my posters up there, I'm sure you can see, but it was pretty special. I mean, to think at the beginning of that year when Johnny Gaudreau came onto campus, and just, I mean, he looks young now, but he looked like a 13-year-old at the time. And to think that he was going to just have this amazing year and become one of the best players in the NHL that's first of all crazy to think about. But yeah, just the year that it was, and that particular Frozen Four, being in Tampa and them just doing a really good job, with getting a lot of fans there and promoting it, and just how close we were as a team, and seeing the success that, Kevin Hayes and Brian Dumoulin and all these guys have had. So pretty cool to, like you said, be a part of that.
I have a little bit of a bone to pick, kind of switching gears back. So we only have a few more minutes with you here. And the bone that I have to pick is that, when you end up on an ECHL city on the road, and I have to imagine maybe AHL city too on the road, is that if you pulled into, the hotel, is that guys kind of don't explore. And like, if there's an easy get, like when we were in Brampton, it'd always be Shoeless Joe's, right? And I'm not saying Shoeless Joe's is bad, but it was just kind of it's just the easy solution. And lazy. All of a sudden the lazy, even when we're in St. John's, everybody ends up at the Pizza Uno. Piv will know what I'm talking about. There's that Pizza Uno on Water.
The Boston Pizza?
Oh, Boston Pizza. Sorry, not Pizza. Boston Pizza. Thank you for the correction. Boston Pizza. You're welcome. Boston Pizza on Water Street there, or New Gower, or whatever it is. And it's like, you're in St. John's, Newfoundland. You can get the best, fish arguably in Canada here, maybe outside of Vancouver. And you're just choosing the easy options. So were you the guy that would kind of rile up the boys? Like, we're going to go somewhere different. Would you just do it yourself? Would you succumb and do the easy option? What was your strategy there?
I will say I would never succumb and do the easy option. And I think you could, I'm sure you could talk to some of my former teammates who would corroborate that. But
Good.
Yeah, I would usually be able to find a couple guys that would, usually about 4 or 5 guys that I knew they liked to try and eat good food as well. And we would just kind of have our little group and do it all the time. Cause I know that guys have their routines and everything, and I never wanted to like force anyone, but yeah, I would usually find a good little crew. And then also sometimes like the good thing about being a goalie is, you're not playing every single game. And so I would do some stuff by myself for like lunch. If I wasn't, if I wasn't playing, I usually wouldn't, lay down and take a nap. I would usually go right somewhere and grab something good to eat for lunch. So those sorts of things kind of, I don't think I would have been able to play 7 years professional if I wouldn't have, given myself that time. And I think that helped me. And there are once I got to the South Division, there are some amazing actually places that we travel. Like that Orlando trip, I always loved going there because you could walk everywhere and there were just so many cool places that you could access really easily. So this division was a lot of fun in that respect.
You mean to tell me that you wouldn't rather be in Brampton or Reading or Glens Falls? Like Glens Falls is great. Like, it's my favorite city in the North Division. But yeah, I agree with you. Maybe Orlando might have a little bit of a step up.
That year I played in Quad City, I think we were back and forth to Brampton like 9 times. I was, nothing was worse than on that drive. We'd do it overnight and you'd get to the Canadian border at like 5:30 in the morning. And at least at this time, they would make everyone get off the bus and show their passports. And then you get back on and you'd have like another 2.5 hours where you couldn't fall asleep, then right to the rink and practice. So those are trips that I don't miss for sure.
Did you guys stay at the Monte Carlo Inn when you were in Brampton?
Oh yeah.
Oh, the staple.
Yep.
Brampton will definitely be missed.
Yes.
Parker, you kind of talked about a little bit some of your favorite spots in the ECHL in the South Division. What are some of if you had a circle, maybe your Mount Rushmore of ECHL cities, not only for the hockey of it, but for, exploring, for food, for maybe nightlife? What are your top cities in the ECHL, not including Charleston, because we already touched on that quite a bit?
Yeah. I mean, first of all, Kansas City, the year I played there was, aside from playing here, my favorite year. It's a great city, but the atmosphere in the arena there is, if for guys who haven't played there, it is just so cool. They have like a little bowl that's probably like 4,500 people and it's loud. The fans are really passionate and it's just, it feels like big time hockey and it's pretty cool. So I would definitely say that kind of the combination of city and, the hockey atmosphere. And then same for Idaho. Everyone knows Idaho is an amazing city to travel. And that was actually my last road trip as a pro hockey player. I guess it was the week before the season got canceled and we got to spend a week out there. And that was cool because my dad came out and he's only not been to 2 states and that was one of them. So he's like, I would always get called up right before that trip. And so it was really special to be able to experience that place that we both wanted to go to for so long. So definitely those 2, but those are probably a little more on the obvious side. I love Greenville. We unfortunately here we would do it day trips most of the time, but if we got to spend some time in Greenville, that was a blast. And then I guess lastly I'd have to say Portland, Maine. Just awesome food there, good atmosphere, cool rink. So those are my favorites, although I never got to go to St. John, so I'm sure that would be up there had I made that trip.
Might be in the top 5.
For sure.
Maybe in the top 5.
Might just make it.
Competitive fit.
Parker, appreciate your time here today. Thanks so much for taking a bit of time out of your day. Where can people find the stuff that you're writing on?
Yeah, it's on charlestoncitypaper.com. That's where all my my food articles are. And then I also in my spare time write a hockey related newsletter and have some writers that contribute pieces for me, and that's just pregameskate.com. So
terrific. Parker Milner, thanks so much for joining us here on Coastin. For David Fine, I'm Evan Pivnick. Thanks for tuning in. We'll speak to you next week. This has been Coastin, presented by FloHockey TV.